It's getting hot out there, but we are definitely not going to be taking off our clothes in here, thankfully for y'all. What we are going to be doing, though, is keeping an eye on yet another cluster of storms this morning in northeast Texas and east Texas. And then once again tonight, yes, ladies and gentlemen, another round of thunderstorms, possibly. Let's talk about it in this Tuesday edition of the Texas Weather Roundup. Good morning. It's Tuesday, the 4th of June, 2024. I'm Texas Storm Chasers Building-in-Chief David Reimer. I will admit, yesterday's forecast, even though I spent, 15 minutes talking about it yesterday morning, it didn't go very well. Complex of storms did indeed make it into East Texas, Northeast Texas, late morning in the afternoon hours, but what we did not expect necessarily was redevelopment on the western flank of that outflow boundary to be, pretty much east of DFW. We were talking about development possibly back, in northwest Texas, the Panhandle. The cap was too strong for storms to really get going in the Panhandle, northwest Texas, outside of some brief attempts. Meanwhile, we had intensification of storms in East Texas yesterday evening from dinnertime onward that ended up producing multiple tornadoes and damaging winds that knocked out power to over 100,000 customers, which means probably 250,000 people without power late last evening this morning. So these complexes of storms continue to be very difficult in the forecast department, unfortunately, and as we go into this morning, we've already got another one about to cross into Texas. This is being recorded shortly before 5 a.m. I'm going to try to get this video out earlier than I did yesterday, but we have a complex of storms that has originated from near Oklahoma City, near Henrietta on Interstate 40. Those have accelerated southeastward this morning with localized damaging winds, hail, heavy rain, and flooding from the Oklahoma City metro into southeastern Oklahoma. These storms, by the time you see this, will be in northeast Texas. The potential will exist for localized wind gusts of 50 to 65 miles an hour, the potential for heavy rainfall that will probably cause additional flooding to develop because soils are completely saturated. Any new rain will run off. And though the worst right now looks like it's going to move into southwest Arkansas, it is entirely possible this does try to reorganize at some point, and we could see some uptick in damaging wind in northeast Texas and maybe even east Texas this morning. So again, we're going to have to keep a close eye on this. The severe threat is lower than yesterday evening. The atmosphere hasn't really, seen a considerable amount of rejuvenation, for the lack of a better word. We're still a bit stable in the low levels out here in northeast Texas, but this is definitely rolling in a bit earlier than yesterday, which we'll have to keep an eye on for this afternoon as well. Let's take a look at the high-res rapid refresh model. Now, just like yesterday, this model is running a couple hours slow with this storm system, meaning it's showing it moving in northeast Texas, 8, 9 a.m. Well, it's 5 a.m. It's already here. So this is just to show you that, yeah, storms could actually continue all the way down into portions of East Texas this morning, into early this afternoon. Depending on the organization, I wouldn't be shocked if this actually makes it almost to the Gulf Coast, either on Southeast Texas, Louisiana, or both. And again, some of these storms this morning into early this afternoon could have localized damaging winds that could knock more trees down, power lines, etc., some hail, and heavy rainfall with the threat of flooding, depending on how organized this system is in East Texas. As we get into this afternoon, we're going to have to watch the residual outflow boundaries again. Last couple runs of the high-res rapid refresh model are showing maybe a couple isolated storms east of the dry line in the Panhandle. If that happens, the threat for some large hail, localized damaging winds. Also showing development along a residual outflow boundary across portions of northern and central Oklahoma, kind of near I-35 from Oklahoma City up towards, let's just say Wichita, Kansas. Reason I'm mentioning that is just like the system this morning, whatever forms in north and central Oklahoma this afternoon, this evening, will probably grow into a complex of storms that move southeast into Texas tonight. Exactly where? A good question, isn't it? But North Texas, Texoma, Northeast Texas, another round of storms possible tonight into Wednesday morning with the threat of damaging winds, heavy rain, and hail. You remember last week, I think it was Friday, I mentioned that it looked like, Monday, Tuesday, maybe even Wednesday might give us a break from the storms. Yeah, it's been a great spring, hasn't it? No, it has not. And trust me, I'm making fun of myself here. I'm not saying my forecast or our forecast or anybody's forecast have been particularly great with this, but unfortunately, welcome to what we call summer MCS season. These big old complexes of storms stand for mesoscale convective systems. And we're kind of just in a pattern where storms, fire up in parts of Oklahoma, Kansas, whatever, move southeast. For what it's worth, that may be a pattern we're in later this week into early next week. Except we're going to have some differences. I'll talk about that in a minute. But again, that's what may happen this morning into this afternoon. Depending on where this outflow boundary ends up from this morning's storms in East Texas, we could see some renewed development in parts of North Texas, Central Texas, East Texas. Really, it's just going to be, when we get to lunchtime, we'll look at the satellite imagery, we'll see what's going on, we'll have updates. Meteorologist Jason Cooley most certainly will. It'll be my nap time, because your Baldy-in-Chief is kind of on a night schedule. Go to sleep at like 8 a.m., wake up by 2 to 3, and it served us well, considering we keep doing these overnight storm complexes. All right, so again, that's the expectation for today, tonight. I can't wait to come back in 12 hours, 5 p.m., 6 p.m., or, even tomorrow morning about this time and see just how different the forecast actually ends up being compared to reality. It's always fun to see how different it ends up being. Again, that's sarcasm, but unfortunately, probably at least halfway true. All right, fire weather danger today across the western third of the state. High Panhandle, West Texas, Permian Basin, the Big Bend, out into the Guadalupe Mounds, the Trans-Pecos, Davis Mounds, the Big Bend, Borderland, El Paso, far west Texas, west of the dry line. Hot, very low humidity, high wildfire danger. Tomorrow, Thursday, same stories, maybe a little lower, but still, western quarter to the western third of Texas will be where we have the highest wildfire danger, west of the dry line. East of the dry line, it's going to be hot. It's going to be humid. Today, high temperatures well into the triple digits, pretty much the western half of the state. Highs either in the upper 90s or close to 110 degrees. In Rio Grande City yesterday, it was 114 degrees. Probably going to do that, or 115 this afternoon. Heat index values, eastern half of the state. Notice the high temperatures in the upper 80s to upper 90s. Well, today in San Antonio, it's going to be 101. The heat index may be near 110. McAllen, a high of 101 this afternoon. A heat index near 120 degrees Fahrenheit. It is beach weather, beach humidity, and it is going to be very hot and very unpleasant. And we're going to have heat index values of, 105 to 115 eastern half of the state this afternoon. Excuse me, it's summer heat. Goodness gracious. All right, tomorrow, highs, upper 80s, 90s. Well, let's just say northeastern half of the state, hot, humid. Southwestern half of the state, upper 90s to near 110 degrees. Hot, either very dry behind the dry line or humid east of the dry line. It's going to be hot. Now, as we get into Thursday, hot, highs in the 90s and 100s. Friday, a little cooler across the northern, let's say northeastern quarter to half of the state. I mean, we're just, picking at straws here, but highs fall out of the 90s into the upper 80s to low 90s. It's still hot and humid. As we get into Saturday, same story. Now, let's take a look at the upper level weather pattern. I don't typically show this unless, we're in summertime doldrums, so we're just looking for a pattern change. But essentially what you're looking at here is the weather pattern at about 18,500 feet above sea level. We call it 500 millibars. It is halfway up the atmosphere. This just allows us to overall see what the jet stream's doing, specifically where it's at. Are we under the influence of a high pressure or a ridge, or are we dealing with a trough, a storm system? Well, what we're dealing with now, again, these little dips in the jet stream today, yesterday, storm systems. We're going to be more in a ridge or a high pressure, under the influence of a high pressure tomorrow, Thursday, Friday, and then as we get into the weekend, it looks like we're going to see that upper level high pressure, some call it heat dome, kind of break down over us, shift into the southwestern United States, and we're going to switch into more of a northwesterly flow aloft. That, by this weekend, is going to help actually bring, you can call it a boundary, a not as hot front, whatever you want to call it, but that will bring thunderstorm chances and rain chances back into perhaps a sizable portion of Texas this weekend and early next week. Now, we're not going to get into the specifics of, okay, are we going to have a bunch of storms every day? We're going to be dealing with, just summer pop-ups. We're going to have more thunderstorm complexes. What are we going to be dealing with? But we will at least probably be trending a bit cooler. And this could actually be for most of the state, which would be a nice change of pace. So, all right, so that's your hope for the day. And again, taking a quick look at the radar, now just past 5 a.m. Storms now moving into northeast Texas across the Red River. We note that severe thunderstorm warning for Lamar County for damaging straight-line winds approaching Paris, winds over 60 miles an hour. And again, this complex of storms isn't looking super duper impressive in terms of, hurricane force winds, big hail, tornadoes. But yeah, we're still seeing strong winds. Heavy rain, that'll probably cause some flooding issues. And then we already talked about the forecast, so yeah, it remains busy, and yeah, we're going to have to deal with more storms today. Honestly, that complex moving into northeast Texas very well may make it through East Texas, and maybe even parts of the Golden Triangle plus Louisiana later this morning into the afternoon hours, leaving that trailing outflow boundary or rain-cooled air mass. As we get into the afternoon, that could fire off a couple of more storms, and then, this afternoon, this evening, maybe some storms in the Panhandle east of the dry line, probably some storms perhaps in, Oklahoma, maybe even along the Red River. And then those will move southeast tonight as another complex of storms, probably into portions of North Texas, Texoma, northeast Texas. But we really will have to see what the atmosphere shape is this afternoon. And this is in a situation where weather models are going to handle this well. They haven't handled the last 10 days well. These, what we call convective allowing models, the high-res models, so many of us included, used to try to demonstrate the expectation of the weather to y'all. So really, it's just going to be, by this afternoon, throw the model data out mostly and just pull up satellite data. You'll be able to find the outflow boundaries on satellite data, or we will, and can point them out. We'll be able to see where the air mass is a bit more rain-cooled or less hot compared to hot and humid. Temperature differential boundary. So, yeah. That's what we're just going to have to do, honestly. And yeah, that means we're probably going to have more storms. But it is a dangerous game to try to be super particular and specific when dealing with these systems, because clearly it has been a humbling experience for the last week. We're no longer dealing with these, I wouldn't say well forecast, but situations where we're dealing with the synoptically evident or obvious severe weather setups, with the clear-cut parameters, where it's going to start, where it's going to be, etc. This is more of a summertime weather pattern where it's hot, it's humid, it feels like you're on the beach. And because of that, sometimes these storms just can pop up, and then they're really difficult to kill off. Sounds like a TV show or something, but no, it's not, unfortunately. It's our weather. Today, tomorrow, and then maybe we can have a break Wednesday afternoon, Wednesday night, Thursday. That's what it looks like right now. We're not under any official severe weather risks tomorrow or Thursday, but We'll just have to see. All right, that's going to be it for your Tuesday morning edition of the Texas Weather Roundup. Words are difficult. And again, meteorologist Jason Cooley will be keeping an eye on things this morning into the early afternoon. And we'll be back here this afternoon tonight. If we need to do more severe weather coverage, we will. And we'll probably have storm chasers out and about as well. So those of you without power, hopefully you get it back soon. Linemen, workers, they're doing the best they can. They're here from locally and across the country. And otherwise, I hope you all have a great Tuesday. We'll chat with you later. God bless.